Put down my sippy cup.
Yes. Hi, and welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Carissa DeLay, and this is my co-host,
Jamie Vendera. I can't do it.
Jamie Vendera.
Ghost.
How you doing, Jamie?
Oh, what's that? I'm out of snow.
What?
What's that movie? Oh my gosh. Now it's going to drive me nuts. Oh, I'm out of snow. I'll think of it in the next podcast and tell you.
Okay, the next episode you'll be like, okay, this is what we were talking about.
I can't believe my brain went. I can't think of anyone in the movie. I can see their faces, but I can't. They're in Hawaii. You start talking.
Is this a newer one?
Huh?
All right. I don't know if this is a new one.
Sarah Marshall, Sarah something.
Oh, Sarah Silverstein or Silvers, whatever?
No, not an actor. I'm thinking of the name.
Okay. Either way. We'll figure it out. All right. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about ghostwriting. And this is something that I find we briefly talked about this in one of our episodes.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall. The squirrel came by. All right. Now we can start. Ghost out of snow. Get it? All right.
Yes. Got it. Right over. Because I don't think I've even watched that movie.
I have like a Kentucky accent when I try to do that, you know? It's kind of hard to combine twang with British accent.
Could you imagine?
All
right, ghostwriting.
I'm on point.
All right, what is ghostwriting?
Well, ghostwriting is when you are a secret author. You're actually writing for another author. So you could write a book, you can write an article, and you don't get credit for the work. So
yeah,
I'm going to, hands up, I'm going to be honest here. I've written a lot of stuff. But I've had a ghostwriter. We've had Rich Dalglish, who does our editing, and Order of Five. There's 3 main books. I was so busy. I knew how every chapter should go. So what I did with Rich, I said, hey, man, you're our editor anyway. Can I hire you to write this book? I'll plot out all of the chapters, give you the bullet points. That's your fodder, and you fill it in, and then I'll read it and approve it and all that. And he did a wonderful job. So he's not on the book, though. He don't get credit. I really wrote it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're supposed to keep that quiet.
I don't care. I'm an open book.
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. Yeah, so typically typically ghostwriters are hired to write your content, like you said, and whatever that may be, but they don't get credit. So this actually sounds, for me, someone who wants to write and get my stuff out there, it sounds like, it'd be really weird to have a ghostwriter.
Yep.
But at the same time, it kind of takes away the pressure for people who don't want to be known. They just want to write. They're like, I want to write, but I don't want the pressure of being out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so you could be a really good writer, and it's a good way to make money. And we're not just talking about books, we're talking about articles, blog posts. I seen something for Instagram. It's kind of in the same vein, but it was like, hey, hire us, and we will produce 30 pieces of content for you per month. You just answer these questions. So I know it's more about videos and stuff there, but it really is ghostwriting because I'm sure they're using background images and, putting together blog posts for Instagram, for X, for TikTok, whatever. So if you want to write, it's a good way to do it if you want to stay anonymous.
Right. Well, and there's a fine line you have to understand that ghostwriting isn't like taking credit for someone else's work. Literally, you're hiring a ghostwriter to write your content. So they know they're going to be, completely anonymous. But this also, being a ghostwriter takes more than understanding the story and creating a story. You have to kind of take in everything else we've talked about, knowing the audience that the author wants to hit, knowing the voice of the author and how they want it to be written. The style, the ideas, like you said, you had these bullet points. So that kind of helped Rich, even though it was his story, it helped him understand which direction to take the book. So.
And honestly, Rich, if you're watching this, because I know we'll have you on the podcast soon, I'm hoping I inspired you to write, because he's written several books now, and that came around the time or right after he finished Order of 5 season 3. He already knew my writing style. He had been in the first 2 books. He had edited them. He knew the flow. So he kept everything on point. I mean, it sounded just like I wrote it. I was like, woo, yeah, I remember writing this. But it's me.
So when you hired Rich, did you correspond chapter by chapter, or did you wait till he was completely finished?
I honestly can't remember. Probably with him because he writes so fast. I probably waited till he was finished. But I may be wrong. He could tell me, "Hey, I was sending you an episode," because I did know he had me checking it for continuity, making sure everything was in there I wanted. And there were times
Mhm.
like, "Oh, can you add this? Can you add this?" And he always was accommodating. But I mean, again, he understood my style. Like if you're going to become a ghostwriter, you have to study that author. Right before we started
Oh
this
yeah,
podcast,
yeah, you got to know that. You got to know who you're writing for, because if you're doing multiple authors, you have to be like nothing. All of it can't sound the same. You
yeah,
know,
because you told me something right before about the James Bond books,
some of the James Bond and
Jason
what was
Bourne,
that?
maybe.
Born, yeah. Some of the Nancy Drew, like some of the older books like that, Goosebumps. They had ghostwriters. So some people don't realize that a lot of famous books do have ghostwriters working with the authors. Maybe the authors became too busy and they're like, I need help getting this content out. I can't seem to get it out. I need to hire you to help me.
Yep.
But you don't hear about that stuff.
No,
But
and
we
that's
all,
what happened with
yeah.
me. But you don't know about that because as you read that book by Ian Fleming, who didn't write it, Ian probably had, "Here's what I want this James Bond book to be about. Here's my bullet points.
Mhm.
Go." Maybe there's a creative team. Maybe they kind of came up with ideas together. But the point is, they kept it in his writing style.
Mhm.
They studied Ian Fleming. They knew how he
Well,
would write.
and that brings up a good point is as a ghostwriter, you are on a different level as a writer at the same time, I feel like, because you also have to research the author. You have to have a different level of writing that can be versatile. Something that Rich has said is to me in correspondence was it's very hard to write in first person and third person in the same book, but some people can do it. So that's a different skill set, being able to flip how you are changing the perspective in a book. Um, so it's the same. It's changing the perspective of who you're writing for. Be like, no, I mean, I have a writing style. You know, I have a style that's my style. There's no way I feel like I could go and write like someone else because it would probably drive me insane with my just how like a perfectionist I am about certain things. I couldn't go and change it up to be like someone else. I feel like I'd be having an out of body experience.
I don't even know if I have a writing style. I think writing all the different fiction, I would change my mindset, and I didn't. You think I would
Well,
go and
yeah, because
study?
you've literally talked about your multiple personalities as an author.
Yeah, exactly. It's what it is. I become a little girl and I'm writing, stuff about mermaids, or I become an old staunchy man when I'm writing adult, a fantasy. Yeah, so it's switching that, but of course it's watching for me. I study, but it's more studying Netflix. Honestly, I'm like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
want to write a horror. Let me go read a bunch of Stephen King, which I did in my childhood, but I don't do that. I go find the most sick and twisted horror movies I can find and be like, ooh, I got an idea,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then go from there.
Which, Stephen King, no ghostwriters. It's truly him.
Yep.
Let's talk about some of the pros and cons. We'll start with pros. So this could be a very lucrative career field because if you can get into the right, oh my goodness.
You done sell my sippy cup earlier.
I know, but your water thing, oh my gosh,
I'll just hold it.
it's like ombre, it's a gradient, like
It is. It's to
it's a
show me
beach
when I'm
color.
almost down to the bottom. I'm getting close today already.
Oh, it changes color?
No, it's already changed color, but it's like, hey, it's 8 a.m. Good morning. You've seen these type of things. I have to.
Yeah.
I'm in love with. I'm like my wife. We're in love with cups, but I'm in love with these big cups. So I saw it. I was like, gotta have one.
That is not a cup.
It's a sippy cup, just
That
bigger.
is that is like a refill jug in the refrigerator that everybody in the house gets their water from.
Not me, girl. I'm telling you, this is
Do you have a
all
do you have a separate
mine.
refrigerator to house all your water?
No, because I don't drink cold water. I drink room temperature water. Remember, singers, room temperature water, or you can sip hot water to get more blood flow in the vocal cords. Oh, wait a minute. This is a writing podcast. Let's get back on point. Income. Hey, Rich made some money off of me.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's definitely. And think about, when I think about that, you could write, edit and rewrite, and then you're done. They're going to pass it on to an editor. You don't have to pay for an editor. They need a book cover designer. They need to do the KDP. You don't have to do any of that. And you can be
Mm-mm.
like, I wrote a book. Of course, you don't get the accolades for it, but we'll talk about cons here in a minute.
Yeah. 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 So income is one. Creative collaboration. So this allows you to collaborate with so many different projects. You get to kind of work on different things. A lot of famous people use ghostwriters. And if you get in that network, you can kind of collaborate, be like, oh, I wrote a book for Britney Spears, or I wrote a book for this person. They start saying, hey, this person helped me. I would look them up because they're going to help you with, finding your voice and telling your story as if you wrote it. And we mentioned this, and I'm okay to say this, but we know that probably a lot of politics, because there's no way they have time to do certain things. They're going to use ghostwriters to help them maybe tell their story. I'm sure a lot of people who are super busy use that when they're telling personal stories versus like.
Yeah, I wonder when I see political, religious figures, and I'm not saying they're not involved. They could be just like I was involved with Order 5-3. They're like, here's what I want to write about. Here's my, my notes off the top of my head, but you take the reins because I am too busy. So it's understandable. It's been happening since people were writing. But it's good. I mean, think maybe you don't want to really be an author, like you mentioned earlier, but you love to write. So this is the way to maintain being anonymous when you're writing a book.
Well, yeah, because like we mentioned, there's a lot of things that come after writing the story, getting the book into print, getting the book to readers, all the pressure of getting that book to be a good selling book. That's a lot of the hard part after you've written the story. So if you just write the story, I'm like, I don't have to do anything else. I got paid for my book and I'm good to go. I mean, there is that ability to just kind of step off the printing press, I guess. Like, it's hot off the printing press and I'm out of it. Like, I just did my content. So, but
I think it's good for your skill development too. Like you had just said, you could do multiple projects. Well, you may be doing a fiction book, then a nonfiction book. And if it's nonfiction, it could be on singing, on carpentry. So you develop a skill set to write in multiple genres, multiple subjects that can help you with every book you write. I mean, every time I write a book, I feel refreshed and new, and I'm learning something and growing from that point.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I was thinking about when it comes to like, you were talking about skill development, but I know that when I first started writing, I didn't know what I was really doing, but I learned through the editing process. It's going to help you just as a writer to where maybe one day you're like, you know what? Now that I've done a lot of ghostwriting, I'm ready to put my name out there and start, writing my own book, write my own storyline, because I've learned how to do this type of book, that type of book. And now you're like, I'm ready to write my own book and I'm going to put my name on it now, because maybe you're deciding you want the credit for it. So it may be just like almost like a skill building process, essentially.
I kind of wonder, I keep bringing Rich up, but I kind of wonder about that too. Because he's such a great editor, and he's added and he's taught me so much. I've learned from working with every book with him, because it's almost more like a creative collaboration, kind of like you can do with ghostwriting. So even if I've written a book, he's like, man, I wouldn't say it like that. You need to show more than tell, and we can shorten this paragraph. You don't need to say all this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm always learning. So I had a point to that, but then the squirrel went by and I done forgot it. So over to you, Carissa.
Well, this also brings up giving credit.
I'm not on cocaine, just so you know. It's just natural.
I mean,
or caffeine. That's what I meant to say.
All right.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that one.
Up, Jamie.
Whatever gets you to finish Age of the Sigil.
Well, then I need to step it up.
Right? Oh, yes. But so like we're talking about getting credit for things. I was thinking about AI and how AI can be a ghostwriter for someone that they try not to give them credit, but the problem is it's eventually you're probably going to have to give them credit, because the world's going to know that AI wrote your book.
Well, I mean, that's probably like when we talked a few weeks ago about when you're logging into KDP, you have to go through that prompt. Did you have any AI write this book? Because it's becoming so prominent so quick.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about some of the cons. What would you think some of the cons would be?
Well, if you don't want to stay anonymous, the lack of recognition would be like, you see that book. If a book comes out, and if it does okay, you're like, all right. But if it blows up, you're like, wait a minute.
I wrote that.
What? And I only got paid a measly $1,000, whatever it is. I got paid, and this guy now they're on yachts and this and that, because that book's the biggest seller in the world.
Well, that's the thing though. You can kind of go into your contract. I feel like sometimes as a ghostwriter, if you take a flat fee, yeah, you're screwed if the book blows up.
But if you do take a percentage, which is
of the royalties.
smarter.
If you're going to do that, take a percentage. Just take that almost take the gamble. If you're writing the story and you hear the pitch or whatever, and you're like, I think I can make this great. Take that chance. You may not see it in the beginning, but what if that book takes off? You might be like on the yacht with them.
Exactly. Or on your own yacht.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Something I put down as a note was limited ownership. So ghostwriting surrenders your rights to the work that they create. So you essentially can't go in there and do an offshoot from that. You
That's a
can't
good
go.
point.
Yeah, you can't do an offshoot of that. So it's limiting your ability to showcase your skills and attract potential clients because they really can't give you the notoriety for it. But at the same time, there's like that backroom networking, essentially.
Yeah, that's kind of when you said earlier, like, hey, I wrote a book for Britney Spears, and in my mind I'm thinking,
yeah, you can't tell people that.
Yeah, so it really depends on the circles that you're in.
Right. So I feel like, to backtrack, you can't to go out there and say I wrote that book because you're signing almost like, what is that, non-disclosure that you did that. But at the same time, there is that backroom talk of, hey, I know someone that can help you write this. So
yeah, and you may have an author who loves their ghostwriter, and they're like, hey, exactly. You're like, this is how I got this book. It's what blew up. You need to hire this person.
Yeah, which reminds me of that. There's a website of someone that had emailed us at one point, and I went and looked at that website and had no examples of their writing, and I was like, how do I know you write? Like, I don't see any of your writing. I don't like. They're like talking about being a freelance writer, and it's like, I don't see your work. How do I know that your work is good? So.
Or the ones that kill me is like, I've sold 1 million books and I'm climbing up the Amazon ranks. Here's my marketing thing, and I've written 20 books. And I go to research. Oh, I wonder what they wrote. Nothing. Just one book.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a ghostwriter. Okay. Maybe you are.
Yeah, but I don't know what your work is because you can't tell me.
I mean, especially if you sign and you would say something, legally you could be in a law of trouble. So read that contract and make sure when you were ghostwriting. And again, we are planting the seed. If you want to take a flat fee and that works for you, that might be great for articles or blog posts. But if you're writing books, you might be like, hey, here's my flat fee, or here's my cheaper flat fee if I have 5% of the book or something, 5%, or 10% profits, whatever works out for you. But be thinking about finance, because you're doing this for one thing. You love writing, but imagine if you could make this your living. You're like, I'm tired of being a school teacher, a construction worker. Wow, if I would have taken a percentage of all the ghostwriting I'm doing, I would be making a lot more residuals per month.
It's like OnlyFans for books.
Exactly.
Only writers.
Yeah.
Ooh,
onlywriters.com.
Only writers.
Cut that out. We gotta put that as a $1 million idea.
Yeah, ghostwriters needed.
Yeah. Who are you gonna call? Ghostwriters.
So one of my last notes I put on for ghostwriting was ethical considerations. So basically having that ethical integrity as to what you're writing. So you may face these dilemmas of content that may not be in view of your own personal beliefs. I think that'd be very hard.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not used to writing like erotica, and you're like, oh, I can't write this much, or maybe somebody wants you to write a horror book and you have a lot of religious beliefs and it gets it's like a serial killer book or something. You're like, yeah, I can't write these scenes, and also beyond that, you need to know your strengths too. Like, if somebody would ask me to write romance as a ghostwriter, I would have to turn it down. I don't think I could write it. I couldn't write that. I couldn't write erotica. I can write YA, but I couldn't write like young children's books. So don't take on every project just because you're a ghostwriter. You need to, they're buying your service because, you're well recommended or they love what you've written in the past. One bad review, if you write a romance, like, man, you really screwed this up and I paid you a lot of money. That's not going to, do well for you. So make sure you choose wisely.
So that kind of falls on the author taking credit. So if you're the author and you're trusting your ghostwriter and you're not collaborating, that's kind of on the author for not going back and saying, we need to change this.
This is true, but I mean, even if I were a ghostwriter, from the ghostwriting perspective, I wouldn't take on. If I was very successful in writing science fiction, and someone came to me like, "Hey, I got this science fiction, but it's very erotica, like heavy erotica," I'm like, I would say I don't think, for me personally, I could do it, and it's not an ethical consideration in that point. It's just the fact that I'm not. It doesn't turn me on to write like that.
Mhm.
Like writing YA fantasy, writing space operas. Yes, I get excited. So whatever
Right.
you're writing about, you definitely want to be like, okay, yeah, this is something I would love to write myself.
Yeah, and so this is something that I'd be very interested in having a ghostwriter on the podcast if we could find one.
Hey, so if you're listening,
And you're a ghostwriter, reach out because that's
who are
kind
you
of
going to call? Us. To get you on the podcast.
That's right. Yeah, because it'd be nice to hear from them their experience from like multiple, not just like maybe one experience. It'd be nice to hear from someone who's had multiple experiences with ghostwriting and how that plays out. So
Yeah, and if we can't find anybody, I'll do. I mean, and all the authors on Vendera Publishing will admit this. I'm kind of more of a producer, but I've written with like Ray West with A Melody to Madness. I've written with James Lugo. So there are some books, Superior Vocal Health, not so much, but I did like heavily produce it and say, hey, David, you need to expand this. You need to expand this. You need to do this.
yeah,
And
insight and input from your publisher and your like that. But we need someone that's like, what's the
legitimately doing it.
what have you done? What was the process? You know, what was the before? How were you approached? Are you in some kind of like, dark web? Like, how do people find you? To know your content is good. I'm assuming maybe they even send a sample of their writing in.
I'm assuming. I mean, I
Almost
would
like an
never hire a
audition.
ghostwriter. I mean, that's why I hired Rich. I knew
Right.
his writing because I could see his, even though he didn't change my voice, I could see his work within my own writing. And I was like, okay, this is who I need to do this because I don't have time to finish Order 3.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be interesting. We can, when we have him on as an editor, we can ask him his experience with writing something for you, how that went. Were you the annoying author that got on his nerves? Or...
I'm always getting on his nerves, I'm sure.
It's funny.
All righty. Ghost.
Yeah. Ghost writing. Not ghost writer.
Yeah.
Like the DC character.
Yeah, but you know what? There's no shame in ghostwriting. Or even if you're an author. I mean, we've got a busy world. So, yeah. Totally.
I'm looking something up. I just think I literally just said something wrong. Yeah, it's Marvel. I don't know why I said DC. You didn't even catch it. I said ghostwriter, not the DC
I was
character.
thinking writer.
Oh no, I was thinking writer.
Ghostwriter.
Yes, and I was thinking, I don't know why I was thinking DC because I know he's Marvel because Ghost Rider was on S.H.I.E.L.D. on the show and stuff. So
and that was so much better than the movie. I like the movies, but I love Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was such a good TV series. And the cool thing about what they did was they incorporated their TV series into the movies. There were some little snippets that if you didn't know, if you weren't watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that you're like, well, they talked about this on S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, so you knew there was like this collab going on. They did a great job with that with the Marvel movies. They missed the mark when they didn't do that with the DC and the CW stuff.
Yes.
They missed a huge mark right there.
Yep. All righty.
Crikeys. No. All right. This was just a small and basic informal approach to ghostwriting. Hopefully we can find a ghostwriter and have them on the podcast and share their experience so we can maybe, get a little bit more insight on that. So do you want to close us?
Yes. If you would like to follow us, go to alwayswritepodcast.com. Because you can find us everywhere on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, someplace else. You know all these. And if you're a ghostwriter, please email us, alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com. And beyond that, if you have any other questions, If you have an episode you'd love for us to do, reach out, let us know. We're ready to cover everything. We're here to give what information we have and learn together. So let's grow as writers, and let's always write.
Yes.
Was that good?
Yes, that was great.
All right.
All right. Thank you for listening. And like you said, always write. And until next time, I'm author Carissa DeLay, and this is
Author Jamie Vendera.
Thank you for listening.